Hi everyone, welcome back to another video. Today is going to be all about how to explore a new region and a bunch of my tips for exploration so that you can get the most resources and so that you don't waste your time wandering around grounds without getting anything. I am someone who loves to explore and likes to get all those resources, those primogems, mora, hero's wit, and everything else you can get from chests. And I've learned a lot of things along the way. So I'd like to share all of those tips with you and hopefully you take away something that you can use in your own Genshin exploration. So without further ado, let's get on to the video. With the new region of Natlan releasing, we have a lot more content to explore and a lot more quests to do. But after exploring many regions in the past and making a few mistakes, I learned that there actually is a proper way to explore things so that you don't waste your time. I'd like to introduce you into something called the order of which you do things. So I've thought about this order and there are many ways to do it, and obviously the circumstances might change and you might not be able to do some things at some orders, but you mainly want to follow this structure. So the first thing you want to do before you start any exploration, before you go open any chests, you need to finish the Archon quest that is related to that region. I understand if you're an early game player and you might not have access to the Archon quest, or you might not have enough time to finish everything. I still highly suggest doing the Archon quest because a lot of the time the Archon quest allows you to access certain locations within the region that you can't access normally. Also, if you're one of the people who likes to enjoy the storyline of Genshin and wants to understand things, it's always better to do the Archon quest so that you get a basic understanding of the region that you're exploring. The Natlan Archon quest was really good to help me understand the characters and the terrain, and the best way to utilize these characters so I can manage navigating the terrain a lot easier. Also, the Archon quest is a lot of the time a prerequisite for many other world quests, so in order for those world quests to open up, you need to do the Archon quest to begin with. Also, Archon quests can open up bosses and locations that you need to access in the future and don't want to have to deal with later on, so always finish the Archon quest before you get started with anything else. As for the next thing you want to do in the order, those are character story quests. However, this one is a little bit of a case-sensitive thing because sometimes you don't need to do the character story quests and it's going to be a long process to finish all the character story quests in that region, but there are character quests that open up weekly bosses and also give you a better understanding of things, so those are the ones you want to prioritize. Also, sometimes these character story quests can introduce you to characters and areas of the terrain that you want to understand more, but usually after doing the Archon quest, I'd throw in a couple of character story quests. I wouldn't do all of them because there are a lot and it does take a lot of time. However, the character story quests make you more familiar of the story and the terrain and sometimes opens up locations. The next thing you do in exploration order are the world quests. Usually in between big patches, they'd introduce these sub-regions such as Petrichor and the Sea of Bygone Eras. These ones don't have an Archon quest, but they do have a major world quest, along with this area in Sumeru and Engonomia. Now these ones, you need to do the story quest to unlock the full potential of the area, which is why you want to prioritize those. Now it is possible to not have to do it in your entire gameplay life, however it does restrict you for what you can and can't explore, because areas like these have a lot of caves and entrances that can only be opened if you complete the world quest. There's also the Narcissenkreis world quest in Fontaine, and I know that this opens up a lot of exploration areas, so you want to complete this before you start Fontaine exploration, or at least during your Fontaine exploration progress. Completing a world quest opens up a lot of terrain for you to explore, and you don't want to be quest locked behind any doors or mechanisms that you haven't yet completed. So usually what I do is the moment a new area drops, there's always a quest associated with it. I would finish that quest first so that I can get started on exploration after. I know that world quests are pretty boring, especially since the dialogue is not voiced over, and the majority of the time I do just skip through things. Like the Aranara quest, I read a little bit, but then I just started skipping through it because of how long it was. Also, if you're not a lore enthusiast, you can also skip these, and if you only just want the rewards, there is no need for you to read the dialogue. However, if you are interested in what the story has, and you just don't have time to read it, you can always watch a video recap, or you can look on the Genshin wiki to find out the main parts of the story that you may or may not have missed. Just note that completing the world quest is essential for your exploration, so if you have any region-based world quests, complete those. Another thing you might notice is when you explore the map, they will say these things that say available and it is locating you to a world quest. You want to go and start these at least, just so it shows up in your quest menu. I'm not saying you have to finish it right then and there, but at least talk to the NPC that this quest is associated with so that that quest shows up right here in your world quests, and you will remember to revisit it later so that you don't have to put a pin on the map and then come back to that pin later on. It's a lot better when you just see everything in one place and you can sort of do things like it's a checkbox. Also, if you are one of those people that just has so many quests they haven't done, go do those quests. They give you a lot of rewards, and if you skip through the dialogue, it doesn't take that long. It also can be really overwhelming seeing a ton of quests here in your menu, and as they're adding more things to each update, your quests are only going to pile up, so go do your world quest. This is a sign right now, because it will benefit you in the long run, and it will grant you those primogems that you really want. Okay, after all questing is done, now it's time for the thing you've been waiting for: how to explore. Now when you're exploring, there are main things that you are looking for, specifically oculi or region-based things like the Plume of Purifying Light or the Crimson Agate or anything like that. But every region will have oculi, and you're gonna want to find these. Next, I'm sure you want to find all the chests in the region, and you want to find all those puzzles and rewards, but you don't know where to start. And let me tell you, here is how I do it. I will go through Fontaine as an example because I've already finished this region. One thing you should know is if it says 100%, that doesn't always mean you got every single chest and did every puzzle. There probably still could be some laying out here, which is why the map might deceive you. Now, one way you can avoid that is by using the interactive map. I always say the interactive map is your best friend, and trust me, it is. If you turn on every single pin on the interactive map, you will not miss anything. I am telling you right now, I have used the interactive map for Fontaine, and it helped me scour every last primogem that is found on these lands and every mechanism, and also there are comments on how to unlock mechanisms or complete challenges so that you are not wasting your time running around this area like a headless chicken. So the way I started exploring Fontaine was I did it in small sections. So as you know, you start here in Maritime Harbor. So I'm going to slowly expand from there and unlock the waypoints within this area. Now there are a lot of underground waypoints, and those ones you kind of want to leave until later. You want to get all the above ground ones first and the ones that are easily accessible, but you just want to get the main waypoints that you can access so you can go back to that area. If I went over here to the Poisson area, I would start out by going from the bottom and going like this, scouring out every chest. Now if you don't want to waste your time, interactive map will show you exactly where it is. There will be pictures as well of where the chest is so that you are not looking around aimlessly. If it's one of those regions that you have explored a little bit of and you've maxed out reputation and you have access to the treasure compass such as leeway and you want to get that last remaining %, then the treasure compass is your best friend for that, because the treasure compass was recently updated so that it is more useful and actually shows you where the chest is rather than that weird annoying little light that just shows you the direction of the chest. But if you are still new to the area and do not have access to the treasure compass, the interactive map allows you to do that. I finished this whole region of Fontaine without using the treasure compass at all, only the interactive map, and I managed to complete it and get the rewards accordingly. The goal for exploration is that you only want to visit an area once. You don't want to mark pins for later and say, oh, I'll get back to this, oh, I'll do this. Just do it and get it over with. Chances are you will never revisit that area of the map in your life unless there is a quest there, but sometimes going back to a place can be very annoying and very repetitive, so it's best that you just scour everything in that area and then leave it be. With the release of Natlan, it is a perfect opportunity for you to start using the interactive map, especially if you haven't been using it. I always find new locations an area of opportunity, and I highly suggest you change your farming habits and exploration habits right now because it will benefit you in the long run. One thing you should note is that if you don't have the interactive map handy with you and you want to check off something later, either don't open the chest or don't do the puzzle. Instead, just mark a pin on the map and say something like done or chest found, and then you will know that that chest in that area was already collected so that you're not confused when you realize you didn't check it off on the interactive map. If you want to maximize your efficiency while you're traveling this terrain, you're gonna want to need an exploration team. Now, the way to craft an exploration team really depends on the region you're exploring. For example, if you are exploring Inazuma, you're definitely gonna need an electro character because the majority of the puzzles are electro puzzles. Choose a character that is built enough to fight enemies so that you don't have to constantly be switching out of your characters. You want your exploration team to be efficient so you can clear the enemies that you need to, but also travel the lands fast. What I mean by that is you want to choose characters with passives that are movement speed buffs or characters that have skills that increase your movement speed. I always loved exploring with Kazuha and Yelan because because Kazuha has a sprint buff and Yelan has her skill where she can go faster. Characters as well like Mona or Sayu also work out too, but again it really depends on the terrain. Your exploration team will not fit every region and you will need to swap out eventually. However, it is important that you want to minimize swapping out time because that is time you could be spending exploring. What I mean by that is you want to make sure your team is very versatile. This team right here has all these different elements, which means they can do this many kinds of totems. It also has the movement speed buffs, a healer so I don't have to constantly heal up at statues or use food, and also it has enough damage dealers so that content is not difficult to fight. Another example would be this team, which you can use to explore underwater Fontaine. The reason why is that Neuvillette has a swimming passive, Farina also has a passive that decreases the cooldown of those skills of those underwater animals, Kazuha obviously for the movement speed, and Jean because she is a healer so that you're not spending time eating food and also teleporting. A lot of what comes into consideration of building an exploration team is trial and error, so experiment with the characters that you think are good and swap them out if you need to. This just comes with experience and how well you know the characters. But one thing you should note is that do not raise characters just for the sake of exploration. What I mean by that is that if you want to use Kirara's skill box where she can go into the little cat shield, I wouldn't raise Kirara just for this purpose. Do not spend any resin or resources on the character if you're only using them to explore. Instead, just use a different character because I am sure they can still do the job. Here is the next thing. As you know, all regions have some sort of submission area for putting sigils. Like this one is the Tablet of Tona, there's the Fountain of Lucine in Fontaine, the Sacred Sakura Tree in Inazuma, and the Tree of Dreams in Sumeru. All of these places are where you can submit the sigils and gain rewards based on how many sigils you submit. Now what I like to do if I do a hardcore exploration day, at the end of the day I like to go and submit these sigils because then I'm able to see the progress that I've made and it feels less draining knowing that there is something rewarding at the end of the day. This is mainly just a psychological tip and trust me, it does work because I do feel good about my exploration progress when I have something to submit. As you can see right here, I'm going to submit these Dendro sigils. And then I get all these rewards like wishes and fragile resin. This way you can also get shrine keys and open Shrine of Depths so that you can get the primogems and rewards that are inside those. What I really like about the one in Natlan is that the rewards are actual primogems per level, and it's very generous of Genshin because at first they only used to do talent materials and everything like that, but primogems are such a great thing, so if you are exploring a place, try exploring Natlan, but you will have to do a lot of quests along the way. Also, while you're exploring, you want to pick up anything that is relevant to that region, such as regional specialties, crystal flies, mob drops, or anything of that sort, because like I said, you only want to visit an area once. And if you're already there, might as well grab the mob drops so that you don't have to return and get them again. I did this tactic when I was farming these transoceanic pearls, so instead of going out on a separate trip to farm these for Neuvillette, I just explored and I ended up getting what I needed without having to take any separate trips. It is very helpful in the long run and it increases your efficiency. Now that does not mean you have to fight every single mob that is in the area, it just means that if you see a mob that is on your trail, might as well fight it because you do get rewards and also some Mora and character XP. However, if you are still struggling to explore, just remember there are things like exploration foods, such as stamina increasers or attack buffs if you can't clear enemies, and obviously there are healing foods if you don't have a consistent healer. Use foods however you need to. There are a lot of recipes that don't require difficult to find ingredients, so it's best that you look out for those and find those recipes. One of my favorite things to make is the sticky honey roast because it decreases the climbing and sprinting stamina consumption, and it is relatively easy to make and find the resources for. Exploring can be a very lengthy task, and if done incorrectly, you could be spending a lot more time than you really need to. Just make sure that you take breaks and do not explore an entire region in less than a day. I know that the moment a new area drops, everyone is so excited to max out the place as soon as it releases, but trust me, this will be the source of your burnout. At least it was the source of mine for Sumeru Desert. Anyways, that was my guide to exploring a new area. I hope you found some of these tips helpful and that you learned something new. Again, if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. I am happy to answer any of them and clarify anything for you because I want to make your Genshin life as easy as possible so that you don't end up wasting your time or making the same mistakes that I did in the past. That will be all. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I'm excited to see you in the next video. Have a wonderful day. Good luck on your pulls and your Genshin journey. Bye!